You said, if he comes, I'm going to punch him out.
That's right.
Hell yeah.
For trespassing on the Capitol grounds, I'm going to punch him out, and I'm going to go to jail, and I'm going to be happy.
Do you think Nancy Pelosi would assault Donald Trump? Maybe she would just go full cray-cray and actually do it. I don't know. Also, what happened to turning down the rhetoric, Nancy? You just threatened to assault the then sitting president of the United States. But I know it's only the right wing that ever uses violent rhetoric. It's not like we had the BLM riots, which were like threatening to burn down cities and destroy property and destroy people's businesses. Yeah, it's only the right wingers who ever advocate for violence.
She's talking with Leslie Stahl of 60 Minutes about matters public and private.
My husband and I have never talked about this. The doctors have supported that because they don't want him to revisit it.
Because of the trauma of October 28, 2022, when a man broke into their house in San Francisco and hit Paul Pelosi, then 82, in the head at least 3 times with a hammer. Surgeons had to remove part of his skull to save his life. You were the intended target.
Yes.
He was looking for you.
Yeah, he was looking for me. And imagine the guilt of all of that. It's just a horrible thing.
Pelosi describes the horror in her new book. One of the most gripping moments in this chapter is when your daughter, a documentarian, Alexandra, says to you, you have to give it up, she said to you, yelling. The speakership, Congress, everything in your public life. Did she blame you or?
Well, I blame me. I mean, not blame me. I was the target. My family, frankly, blames certain elements of the Republican Party who had been demonizing me for about 20 years, every election and the rest. Cloven feet, horns on the head, a horrible person, in flames, a devil, and all of that. The sad thing about my husband's assault was that they just made a joke of it.
And we'll stand up to crazy Nancy Pelosi who ruined San Francisco. How's her husband doing, by the way? Anybody know?
Okay, for Donald Trump to make a joke about that is inexcusable. I condemn the assassination attempt of Donald Trump. I thought it was fucked up, and I think it's fucked up for them to keep saying that Donald Trump is an existential threat to democracy, even though I just think he's just more honest in what he says, and I don't think he's going to actually unilaterally end democracy. But for him to make a joke about Nancy Pelosi's husband being attacked by a hammer, again, terrible human beings. Here's the problem with Nancy Pelosi. She acts like an everyday person who's like a normie, like the rest of us, when she does insider trading and screws over everybody because she gets information before everyone else does. So people who are like demonizing Nancy Pelosi, I don't think you need to put horns on her, but she was literally pushing for Dianne Feinstein not to retire so she could keep a seat in Congress. So yeah, Donald Trump's an asshole, but you do fucked up things too.
I decided the best way forward is to pass the torch to a new generation. It's the best way to unite our nation.
There have been reports that it was Nancy Pelosi who orchestrated a coordinated effort to squeeze
Obama.
President Biden to drop out. Please tell us what you told President Biden to persuade him to step aside.
Well, I've never shared any conversations with the President of the United States publicly, no.
It said that he's furious at you, but it is so well reported that you were the leader of a pressure campaign.
No, I wasn't a leader of any pressure party. Well, let me say things that I didn't do. I didn't call one person.
You called many people. Just admit it. You called many people in the houses of Congress saying, hey, you guys need to come out against Joe Biden. The money's drying up. We're not going to win this election. I have Trump derangement syndrome. I think that if Donald Trump becomes president, there's not going to be a democracy anymore. And my biggest question here, what democracy? You mean the democracy where the donors run everything and they get exactly what they want every single time and the American people don't get anything? Oh, you passed Obamacare. Okay, a Heritage Foundation plan, that's just a conservative plan. You couldn't even pass a public option. So, again, what democracy? It's an oligarchy. The elite political class rules everything. So, before we start saying, hey, you know, Donald Trump's going to end democracy, we should take a good hard look on whether or not this is even a democracy anymore. It looks like to me that the most powerful people in the country just pre-select our candidates. Keep putting your thumb on the scale, Democrats, and say that the other people are threats to democracy, because they would have done the exact same thing if Ron DeSantis became the nominee. I don't think the American people believe you anymore.
I had confidence that the president would make the proper choice for our country, whatever that would be. And I said that, whatever that is, we'll go with.
Had you seen a decline in Joe Biden, and did you think he needed to step aside?
No. My whole point was,
the same people who are telling you Kamala Harris is so great have been lying to you for the last 3 years about Joe Biden's condition. That debate simply just revealed it all to the American people for the first time. I knew we had a real problem when he couldn't do the Super Bowl interview. This decline has been going on for a while now, and we've even had logs saying that there's a Parkinson's specialist who keeps visiting the White House. It's not for Joe Biden, of course. It's for whatever staff member in Joe Biden's cabinet that has Parkinson's. The American people deserve answers how long the administrative state have just been making decisions for Joe Biden. Because we all know it's not just Joe Biden in charge.
She mentioned his many accomplishments, including his forceful leadership of the NATO summit with other Western heads of state.
So he was in a good place to make whatever decision, the top of his game. Such a consequential president of the United States, a Mount Rushmore kind of president of the United States.
Are
Want
you
to know
really
what comes
saying
next.
that he belongs up there on Mount Rushmore? Lincoln and Joe Biden.
But you got Teddy Roosevelt up there, and he's wonderful. I don't say take him down, but you can add Biden.
I have a feeling they're not going to add Joe Biden to Mount Rushmore, but call me crazy. I'm not in the camp that Joe Biden is the worst president ever. I wouldn't say he's the best thing since sliced bread. But I also don't think Donald Trump is the worst president we've ever had. George W. Bush was way worse than Donald Trump. And it was funny when they tried to rehabilitate George Bush's image after Donald Trump became president. They were like, hey, don't you want George Bush back? And Donald Trump just governed like a standard Republican. He even passed things that were populist, like the First Step Act that tried to give nonviolent criminals out of our jails. Let's just stop with the embellishment about Donald Trump is the worst president ever and Joe Biden was the greatest president ever.
If there were a Mount Rushmore for speakers of the House, Nancy Pelosi would certainly be up there, commemorating her 20
God
years
help
as a
us.
commanding leader in Congress until she relinquished Democratic Party leadership a year ago. In The Art of Power, Pelosi, now 84, looks back at some of the battles she's most proud of.
This is not a memoir. There's certain episodes of our history that I played a major role in. So I wanted to write about that, just to show my side of it, what happened in the room where it happened, where I was.
We're coming for you, Nancy!
And the dark day of January 6th. You, in the book, talk about hearing the crowd saying, Nancy, Nancy, we're coming for you, bitch, is what they said.
Yeah.
And you knew what was happening that day was directed at you.
And the vice president. It was an insurrection instigated by the president of the United States.
Were the Capitol riots really bad? Yes. Do I think people should have been arrested for illegally breaking in and stopping an official proceeding when Joe Biden legitimately won the election? Yes. But this never threatened the levers of power within the government. Donald Trump never told the military, hey, I'm taking over and I'm going to get you on my side and you're going to go in there and depose the sitting government of the United States. This was a riot that got out of hand, but it never came close to actually overthrowing the government.
He now tries to disassociate himself from it, blaming it on me and everybody else. But that's the way he is. This was instigated by him.
You said, if he comes, I'm going to punch him out.
That's right.
Hell yeah.
For trespassing on the Capitol grounds, I'm going to punch
Kidding,
him out
kidding.
and I'm going to go to jail and I'm going to be happy.
I knew that I would have to pay a price to go to jail, but I would be happy to do that.
Do you think Nancy Pelosi would assault Donald Trump? Maybe she would just go full cray-cray and actually do it. I don't know. Also, what happened to turning down the rhetoric, Nancy? You just threatened to assault the then sitting president of the United States. But I know it's only the right wing that ever uses violent rhetoric. It's not like we had the BLM riots, which were like threatening to burn down cities and destroy property and destroy people's businesses. Yeah, it's only the right wingers who ever advocate for violence.
He has been the best organizer and fundraiser for the Democrats because people know he should never set foot again in the White House. Never should have and shouldn't again.
Now, I pledge to every American, no matter your party, I will give you everything I have.
Did Donald Trump make a mistake when he chose J.D. Vance?
Oh, I think it was a great choice.
We've learned J.D. Vance has said a lot of dumb shit in his life, and it's going to be used against him politically, so I genuinely believe Nancy Pelosi thinks it was a great choice. But let's not pretend after you're falling back on Kamala Harris, you all didn't want Kamala Harris to be president. You just simply ran out of time.
Ready to fight for it! And when we fight, we win!
So what is your bit of
cringe.
advice for Kamala Harris on how to run this campaign against Donald Trump? Does she instigate a fight? Does she
but
bait him?
Let me just say this, and this is what I tell everybody all the time. Just be yourself. It's the same advice I give to women. Be yourself.
Just be yourself and then be a chameleon and then be a backstabber and betray everything you said during the campaign. Worked great for Nancy, worked great for Joe Biden, should work for Kamala Harris, right?
The Trump people and he and J.D. Vance are trying to portray Kamala Harris as being weird.
She's crazy. She's nuts. She's not as crazy as Nancy Pelosi. Crazy Nancy.
See, I don't like this line of attack from Trump. I would go after that she held back evidence that would have exonerated a man on death row, meaning that Just for her to win as a prosecutor, she's willing to withhold evidence to keep someone on death row. That makes her a horrible human being. Another thing you can go after her for is extending sentences of people so the prisons would continue to profit off of slave labor. She put people in jail for marijuana crimes and then laughed about it after being asked if she smoked marijuana. So she's a hypocrite, puts people in jail for longer sentences than they should be, and holds back evidence for people who should walk free.
There's no question that they understand I make people laugh at them, and that's what they don't like, is to be laughed at. On the other hand, what I have always said about Trump, and now I don't know that much about Vance, but what we do know is menacing. Just talk about kitchen table issues.
Ignore him. is what you
Ignore
say.
him.
The great orange man will not be ignored. That's why he won in 2016, because he knows how to get the headlines back.
Turn around and just look at it. It's so beautiful from this side. You never see this side.
Yeah,
It's gorgeous.
it's beautiful.
Were you ever asked to run for president?
I haven't been asked,
God
but
help
I
us.
was encouraged to put my name in there sometime for vice president. I said, why would I want to be vice president? I'm a legislator. You have to listen. What is the judgment you bring as to what priorities can prevail? What is your strategy to get it done? It's constant.
How can I sell out the corporations and not give the American people actual change while pretending somehow I'm a change agent in Washington, D.C.? And when they were looking at the Capitol, they were like, oh God, it's so glorious. That's where we sell out the American people and actually pretend that we care about them.
It's constant, and it's being respectful of all kinds of points of view. It's inside maneuvering, outside mobilization. It's great. I love being a legislator.
I know I'm dogging on Nancy. This was her finest hour, and actually pushing Joe Biden out, I was genuinely impressed by it. But let's not pretend these are for altruistic reasons to actually help the American people out. They just simply want to be in charge, and they hate Donald Trump.